Hello, everyone. Hello, Internet. Thank you so much for joining us today for Vitals, a social media event about what you need. I'm Nick Bornstein, the general manager of the Webby Awards. And today, the Webby Awards, in partnership with Verizon, have created a very special event for anyone seeking inspiration on how to create great work online. And today's focus being social media. So we've gathered three of the greatest minds in social media to guide us through which practices should stay or go in 2024. These great minds are all also International Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences members and voting members for the Webbies, and they include Tom Shericko, the Senior Director and Head of Brand Engagement for Verizon, Stephanie L. Smith, the Social Media Manager at NASA, and Ashley Murphy, VP of Consumer Marketing at Rare Beauty. We're so excited to have them all here today, and they'll introduce themselves a bit more later. But to give you a little overview of the format for today's event, we call this event Vitals because our processes, both personally and professionally, to make great work online are truly vital. But how do we create great work online? Work that is also vital. Today, we've asked Tom, Stephanie, and Ashley to present their ideas for making remarkable social content. And with Vitals, we do things a bit differently here. We give the mic to our experts, allowing them a personal, unfiltered, insider approach of that aligns with the diversity of the work that they produce. So, a little bit about all what we'll be doing today. If we can go to the next slide. Next slide. Well, I'll go ahead and introduce it. So each of our speakers today will share a presentation of theirs, about 10 slides each. There will be 3 slides per topic, plus an introduction slide, and they'll spend about 1 minute per slide. Now, we're not going to, take this time or this format too serious. There's really no timer. It's not on auto advance, but we will have enough stress in our lives, so we don't need to create any additional anxiety. But we will stay a little bit laid back, but all of our speakers don't go too long. Just kidding. After all is said and done, each presentation will be about 10 minutes long. And what are they talking about? Well, there are 3 topics each expert will discuss. They're intentionally broad and open to interpretation, and they are vital today. What are they currently obsessed with right now? Vital forever. What is essential to their craft, practice, or something they forever need to be present as part of their process? And vital never. What are the deal breakers that simply can't happen? So after we go through each of their presentations, we'll have a bit of time for question and answer. So we definitely ask that all of you out there be thinking of any questions for our speakers. And that's our format. So, again, it's something a little bit different, something fresh, maybe even a little bit vital. So with that, I'd love to present our first speaker, Tom Shericko from Verizon. Let's go ahead and bring Tom out here. Hey, Tom.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Nick.
Awesome. Tom, I will give the floor now.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick, and hello, everybody tuning in. Incredibly excited to share some of my vitals with you all today. And I'm going to just pull up a deck here and get us started. All right. So a little bit about me. I am a real person, as you're seeing, not an emoji, but this is me in emoji form. So Tom Shericko, Senior Director of Brand Engagement at Verizon. I actually joined the company about 4 months ago from a history of leading social and creative strategy roles at Twitter, at Viacom MTV, and at American Express. So today I want to start off by talking a little bit about my vitals for the right now, and as we approach the remainder of this year and into the next one. And the first vital for me, and the vital of today, is all around the co-creator economy. I think we've seen so many pieces about the creator economy. It's set to hit $500 billion a year in the next couple of years. But as a marketer and someone that's working for the stewardship of a brand, I'm really thinking a lot about the co-creator economy and how we as a brand partner with creators of big and small sizes to create impactful work that connects with their audiences and the communities at large on the internet. And this is a real shift. So as we think about the old linear model of partnerships and talent-driven marketing. It was always about the brand that was typically bringing the cash, working with the talent who was bringing the craft to reach their audience, who one would hope would think differently about the brand. It's a model that's kind of as old as entertainment itself. But as we move into this new era and we move into thinking about today, I'm really interested in the co-creator model because it's a value exchange that essentially feeds a flywheel for all three of those parties involved. And as we think about it, what we're doing and how we're partnering with a creator from a brand perspective is very, very different than that old model. We're really starting with the community at the center, and we're thinking about how we can actually activate that community, the energy that they bring, the emotion that they're bringing towards the creator that they love, and specifically the behavior that they exhibit. And then how do we partner with that creator to really lean into their craft, yes, which has kind of gotten them this community, and the emotional connection that they've made with that community. But as a brand, we're not simply dictating to them what to do or how to talk or what creative to bring out into the world. We're really playing more of an enablement and empowerment role, where for all three of these parties, there's value added to the equation. So it's, again, not a top-down dictation from the brand to the creator and telling them what to do and hopefully reaching their community. It's really thinking about their community first and what's going to drive them to attach that emotion and their energy both to the creator and to the brand itself. I'm going to talk about this in action with the person that you probably recognize on screen and through a campaign that you hopefully have all seen at this year's Super Bowl. So we're going to play the video first, and then I'll talk a little bit about the behind the scenes. Who came to see me? Who real like me? Don't make me give up my seat.
Broke the internet again.
Oh, it's coming in really fast.
Yeah, it's Verizon 5G. The network is crazy powerful. I bet you can't break that.
I bet I can.
Wait, what?
Beyonce breaks the internet, but can she break Verizon?
Broken?
Not even close.
Time for a surprise drop. Did I break it?
You broke me. Oh, no.
Introducing Beyonce.
What the?
Seriously? How about Barbie?
No.
I'm running for Beyonce of the United States. Can you hear me now?
No breaky.
How about the first woman to launch the first rocket for the
First performance in space. Wow, Verizon didn't break.
You ain't gonna break me.
Still works.
Okay, they ready. Drop the new music.
So obviously an incredibly entertaining and energetic spot with one of the biggest celebrities and creators in the world. But as we think about the co-creator model, it wasn't just about making a Super Bowl TV spot with Beyonce. It was about creating a platform that would essentially lean into the behaviors of her fan base and give them something that they've been craving and asking for. And I think that the operative line of the whole spot is the one that was spoken at the end, which is, okay, they ready, drop the new music. And we very intentionally kind of deployed this strategy to lean into the fervor that Beyonce's fan community had about her dropping literally anything new. And this was an intentional strategy that we created alongside her team in the lead up to the Super Bowl that week to start to cryptically kind of seed and lean into that fan fever behavior around what is Beyonce going to do and what's something new. There's actually a tweet that we dropped the morning of the Super Bowl of you don't even know what's coming. Obviously, with the energy of this fan base, this got picked up right away, posted on Reddit, and people started freaking out and speculating about what this could be. They know something that's coming, and if not, it's another day that they feel like a delusional fan. Again, just leaning right into the fervor and the activity of her fan base and providing her a platform to bring to life a new track and announce a new album in a way that she simply hadn't ever been able to do before on the biggest stage at the Super Bowl. Then on social, after the spot dropped, we again leaned into the fanaticism of her fan base, this activity, this literally like running to the internet to get every single breadcrumb of information about what might be happening and what might be dropping. So when Beyonce dropped the spot on her Instagram account, we were there as the first account to comment on there and say, new frontiers with Beyonce, keep breaking the internet, we can handle it. Sort of alluding to the fact of like, wait, is this really the first music drop from space? So it is a coincidence that NASA is on this call with us, but we did not actually coordinate a music drop from space beyond the contents of the spot. And then as we kind of recognized that moment on our own brand Instagram account, we wanted to kind of stoke the fires even more, broke the track, broke the internet, but not the network. Now, these two posts actually dropped about 10 minutes before the spot dropped, or the track dropped. And that was intentional to kind of lean into that fervor. And you had accounts like MTV sort of joining in and saying, like, don't leave us hanging like that. And you had her fan base, posting GIFs and memes and tweets about everyone running to Spotify and Apple Music, exactly leaning into that fan behavior. But again, this was intentional. It was intentional to think about what drives the Beyonce fan community, how we as a brand and as a partner with her can give her a platform to drop new music that we knew might break the internet, but reinforce the fact that the Verizon network would stay strong and can handle any internet breaking moment. And I thought that this tweet from a fan just kind of encapsulated this strategy perfectly. Beyonce was asking if she broke the internet, yet she knew we would scramble if she said, drop the new music. We are the ad, baby. Again, in the co-creator model, the community is as much the ad as the brand or the creator. And I think that this reinforces that point so well. And of course, as we think about what's in it for the brand, the equity for brand is the emotional connection with that community. And you're seeing here tweets rolling in from fans replying to Verizon, which is typically not the kind of sentiment that your mobile internet provider might get on social. And of course, then this was recognized by the industry at large, and getting the kind of brand love and recognition that when you pay the money for a Super Bowl ad, you hope to get. But it was the co-creator model that kind of drove all this. All right, now we're going to go into a little bit of vitals that don't necessarily connect directly to the work, but connect directly to my approach for the work and how we think about it. So vital forever. So I think it's really, really important as we think about this industry and we think about the ephemeral nature of the internet to celebrate your wins with your team. It is such a industry of what's next, what's happening tomorrow, what's happening 3 years from now, that it's easy to try to move on to the next thing without really kind of like grasping and sitting and thinking to yourself like, wow, we did something cool. And it was really hard. I think Michelle Obama says it best, and anyone who works in social that's on this event, it's a hard job. 99% of the work that gets pitched, that gets proposed, never gets made and actually sees the light of day. So for something to come out and make an impact, it's huge. But again, you have to celebrate those wins. We got to remember in this industry that it's a tough one. And as we think about the work that gets out there, there's a less than 1% chance that any campaign that gets brought out into the marketplace can win a Cannes Grand Prix. And as we think about the pressure that's on teams and agencies and CMOs and marketing teams, it's never been greater than before, with the average tenure of a CMO now actually being just 40 months, the lowest it's been in 10 years. So for social teams, it's easy to think about this through the lens of you're only as good as your last or your next post. But it's important, I think, that we celebrate those wins because we don't know when the next one's going to happen. Fun fact about me, I'm a big hockey fan, live in Boston, and this is an iconic hockey player from my youth. His name is Ray Bourque. And the interesting thing about Ray Bourque that I think that personifies this point so well is that Ray Bourque had a ton of success earlier in his career with the Bruins. He made it to the Stanley Cup Finals in one of his first seasons. He didn't make it back again for like 25 years and actually win that Stanley Cup in the mid-90s. So if you have success in social, particularly early in your career, particularly when you're just starting out, remember those moments and what got you there and the people that got you there as well, and savor them and celebrate them, because it's really, really hard to get back to the top again, even though you're under the constant pressure to move forward to what's the next thing. That next thing might not necessarily be a success again. So you want to make sure that you think about what are the attributes of what made that moment and what that campaign or that piece of content successful, and savor it and celebrate it with your team. Another tweet here that I think that personifies this so well. Winning's not only getting to the top, it's also who you bring up with you. If you celebrate your wins without sharing with those who supported you, they might feel left out or even like they've lost. And trust me, they'll remember that feeling next time around. Success is a team sport, and nobody makes it alone. Make sure to share your wins so everyone feels like they're a part of the victory. That way, you're not just winning once, you're building a community ready to cheer you on win after win. So when we're all under the gun to think about what's the next post or the next campaign, think about what made the last one that you really, really remember great. And think about the people that you did that with and celebrate those moments, because again, we don't know when the next ones are going to happen. So I want to end with Vital Never, and it's kind of on a similar leadership and sort of people-powered territory. And I think that we're at this moment in the industry where we have more data that we can use to inform our decision-making than ever before. And we're also inundated with more trends and more shiny new objects that can kind of take our eye off the ball or make us shift strategies. And those are important. But I think that there's something that's also important for those of us who work in this space that we oftentimes forget, which is instinct. And I think it's important that anyone who works in our space realize and recognize and just like take a moment to realize that if you're in a position where you get to do this as a full-time job, it's because you've demonstrated instincts in this space that were right, that were successful, that leaned into the parts of the internet and social media that you love. So as you get, again, like inundated with those trends and those shiny new objects, I think it's really, really important to not underestimate and undervalue your instincts, whether you're at the beginning of your career or at a different part of it. And I think that this tweet really encapsulates this as well, again, for that full spectrum of your career, which is that earlier in your career, information helps sharpen those instincts. You don't have a lot to build those instincts off of, so you're seeking information, data, collaborators, opinions to inform them. And then later, those instincts and those experiences help sharpen the information that you're taking in. Both matter, but over time, they take different lead roles. Call it a compounding effect of pattern recognition. And ultimately, one of the things that I'm thinking right now is that the best data comes from your instinct in action. One of the beauties of working in this space and working in social and working on the internet is that the time from idea to production to consumer is still faster than any other channel out there, which means that we can operate and act on our instincts and then derive data and learnings from that to move on to the next thing. So the takeaway for me here is never underestimate your instincts or put them aside in favor of the latest trend or a mountain of data. Oftentimes your instinct needs to play a role in how those things are brought to life, and your instinct is what got you there. So I just want to thank everyone and thank the Webbies for listening to me and my vitals, and I look forward to the Q&A at the end and some great content from my fellow speakers. Thanks so much.
Amazing. Tom, thank you so much. Those are amazing. I mean, I was also just thrilled to rewatch the Beyonce Verizon commercial. That was just a brilliant ad. I saw some folks in the chat were also saying that was the first time they saw it in full. But, you know, that idea you mentioned, this idea that the community is as much of a brand as the creator, I think is so important to remember and to hear. And certainly the idea of celebrating your wins, that's something that all of us at the Webby Awards co-sign and feel so passionately about, you know, making sure that the great work that you and all of the people here are making is honored and supported. You know, that is so important to not only making great work, but supporting a great team and never undervaluing your instincts. Wow. It is true that your instinct will be the best way to make even great, more innovative work. So I loved all of these. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Now, moving on, I'm very excited now to present Stephanie L. Smith, the social media manager at NASA. Stephanie, welcome. The floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great to be here, everybody. I can neither confirm nor deny that I have taken calls with Beyonce's folks. So, and as you'll see from this presentation, we have streamed live from space and put it on the internet. So only time will tell. All right, let me go ahead and fire up some slides here. It's only been 4 years that we've been in this situation. We've got it dialed in. All right, here we go. So my name is Stephanie L. Smith. I am the NASA social media manager. I have been in this role with NASA headquarters for about the last 3 years. And then prior to that, I was 11 years at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, home of all of the Mars rovers. And so you might know me as one of my online alter egos. For many years, I wrote the @Mars Curiosity Twitter account and got to tell people what I did at work today on Mars with my rock vaporizing laser, and sharing that journey of exploration. So what I'm going to do today is talk to you not just about Mars rovers, but I'm sure that can come up if folks have questions, but really about NASA's universe of social media, why we do it, and my vitals. So in the NASA Charter, 1958, Space Act of 1958, it says that we will share our activities and the results thereof with the widest practicable audience. The first time I'd ever heard the word practicable. Very elastic language. It just says it's not enough for us to do the missions. We have to tell people about it, because what good is a discovery if you don't tell anyone? So that's why you're going to see us active on 15 different platforms, and why I'm so tired all the time, and my deep and abiding love of coffee. There's a reason why this French press is already empty, and it is only 9:22 here on the West Coast. So let's get into it. My vitals: surprise and delight. Surprise and delight. If it makes me and my tiny team smile, we're all distributed. Most of them are in Washington, D.C. I'm here in my home in Los Angeles. But when we get that gut, like Tom talked about, following your instinct, when we have an idea and we all get super excited about it, it usually means that there's something there. Occasionally we have to kill our darlings, but oftentimes it feels great and we get the response from the audience that we're looking for. Yes, in case you are wondering, that is Post Malone. And yes, he did do a live downlink with the International Space Station. And it is exactly as wholesome as the look on his face will show you. You can find this at NASA YouTube, actually all of our socials, at NASA, wherever you get your pixels and your memes. So Posty, he called himself Posty when he did his sound check with them. They talked about the overview effect. We released this video on Earth Day. And the overview effect is something that astronauts have talked about, what it's like to look down at planet Earth from the perspective of space, and that you don't really see borders, and that you start to see our planet as something very special and very fragile. And Posty got swept up in this too. So Earth Day comes every year. We've done it for more than 50 years, but there was something special about this moment, surprising and delighting the audience by bringing in talent who wanted to work with us. We wanted to work with him. And by, doing this collaboration, we were able to introduce some science to music fans, some music to space fans, and everybody gets better. Okay. What else is vital? Here we go. Sliding into the comments. So some of us noticed that Mr. Chris Evans posted a couple of photos on his Instagram, and we were very pleased to see the NASA worm hat there in the first frame, but then it wasn't there in the second frame. And so we put our heads together and, it gave him a dad joke for his dad hat. We must ask you the question, where'd the hat go? And, got 24,000 likes. Not coordinated, not planned. We just slid into it. He has worked with us in the past, and I hope that he will work with us in the future. But by showing up, I think it also adds the fact that this is a conversation. And spoiler alert, we're going to get into that in Vital Forever. Last but not least, I don't know if you all had NASA Drops Cardi B lyrics on your bingo card, your social media bingo card, but we did. Saturn don't cook, Saturn don't clean. We'll tell you how it got these rings. So people didn't necessarily see that one coming either. We like to keep folks' heads on a swivel, and we like to make sure that we're using pop culture references that are relevant to the platform that we're on. So this was on our Instagram, which is our largest channel. I don't know that we would necessarily drop it on LinkedIn, but never say never. All right, Vital Forever. Social media is a conversation. It's not a broadcast medium. It's not television. It's not a one-way street. So I would encourage you to listen as much as you talk, if not more. The internet is many things, but shy about, giving its opinion is not one of them. And so we're always going out of our way to answer questions. We'll build entire shows around them. Like this, for example, is our NASA Science Live show, which we simulcast on multiple platforms. Here it is embedded on X. We also go native on Facebook, on YouTube. We take questions, hashtag Ask NASA, from platforms across the internet, and we bring them into the show and build the show around those. But we're also going to get questions, in feed on X. We're going to get them in the comments on YouTube, on Facebook, far more comments and questions than we could ever answer in the duration of the show. And so we're making sure that we're meeting folks where they are and answering those questions. You wouldn't want to be trapped at a party with someone who only talks about themselves, and then the second you ask them a question, they walk away. Don't let that be you on the internet as well. So stick around, answer questions, find out what people are excited about, what they're delighted by, what they're angry about, what they're confused about, what you need to explain better. They will tell you. All right, I'm on slides. I promised that we live stream from space. This was an Instagram live conversation with two astronauts, Jasmine Mogbelli and Laurel O'Hara, ahead of the college football championships, which were in Houston. Houston is also home of the Johnson Space Center. And so there on the bottom left is Leah Cheshire, one of our public affairs officers. And on the right is one of the ESPN college football hosts. And so we brought folks in from on the ground and 250 miles up and had a really awesome conversation that pulled in questions. We used a sticker tap in our Instagram story in the days leading up. Both NASA and ESPN did this, and we were able to curate a bunch of questions. This allowed us to make the best use of the 20 minutes that we had with the astronauts, because the in and out points on those downlinks are firm. And so we used our time wisely, but we also made it interactive. And we're also active on Reddit. Find us at UNASA. Ask us anything. We've been doing AMAs since Curiosity landed on Mars back in 2012. And then this AMA that we did with scientists behind the discovery of the TRAPPIST system, you might have seen this particular illustration above the fold on the New York Times. The importance of really good visuals. So if you got big news, but you don't have any pictures, you won't get coverage. This one had both. So we did this AMA. It's still one of the top AMAs of all time. And by answering questions that folks honestly had after the news came out, this is still a reference for all who search for TRAPPIST-1. The SEO is amazing on Reddit. The site is linked to by so many other sites that it rises up in search results. So we find answering questions here gets us a long tail benefit, both with the audience, with people just searching for things online, but also with reporters. We usually have reporters lurking in our AMAs, and that's why it's imperative that we have all of our experts initial their responses. Discovered that the hard way when poor Steve Sell got saddled with one of my jokes from that Curiosity AMA. Steve Sell, Stephanie Smith, yeah, that's why the L. That's why the L. Yeah. Anyway, moving right along. Okay, never vital. Inaccessible content. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. Use the alt text. Add captions. Everybody wins. When you design with accessibility first, literally everybody wins. It's best for SEO. It's best for people who don't have all of the abilities that maybe you do as a content creator. And you don't have to write poetry the way that our teams at the NASA Webb Telescope did. You can write a very simple image description. You can write very simple captions. Don't let the perfect stand in the way of the good. Just get in there and use the tools that you have available. X makes it very easy to add alt text. Add your caption files, put that SRT on there. How many times do you watch videos that actually have the sound up? You don't want to be that person in line for a coffee who's annoying literally everybody. Whether or not you can hear, sometimes you just don't have it up. So have captions there so that everybody can know, in this case, this VO was done by Morgan Freeman. So maybe you want to go back and listen to it. Also, spoiler alert, the application to become an astronaut is open right now and will be through April 16th. So if you've ever dreamed of joining us and heading to the stars, come on over to nasa.gov, or actually go.nasa.gov/astro2024, and you'll find the application. And last but not least, if the tool doesn't give you exactly what you need to make your content accessible, like we love Instagram, it's our biggest platform, 98 million followers there. However, the alt text field, we have heard from the blind and low vision community, leaves a little to be desired. So instead of using that alt text field, we just put our image descriptions in the running copy of the caption. It means we have to give up some of those 2,200 characters, but it is totally worth it. So whether or not you can see the image, you're going to get the description there. And if you're just reading, you're probably also going to learn a little bit more about what you're looking at. Literally everybody wins. All right. And what has that gotten us? Over 389 million followers as of the end of Q4 last year. We're the number 11th most followed account on X. We're number 40 worldwide with Instagram. We don't show any signs of slowing down. I promise to keep you posted on what's new with America's Space Agency and to tell you why it matters. And with that, I'll hand things back to you, Nick.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Wow, this has been such a treat. I mean, firstly, just to have the voice of the Mars Curiosity rover with us here today is an honor and a privilege. But I think, similar to Tom, all of these vitals are just so necessary. The idea of surprising and delighting with Posty and with Chris Evans, and the idea of having a conversation in your vital forever, I think is so important to think about. This idea that there is a listening element to what we have to do in social. And you guys obviously are doing such an amazing job in making sure that it's not that one-way street. And the vital never of inaccessible content and the idea of really being intentional with designing with accessibility. I think NASA and your team are so intentional about voice and messaging and platform. And so it's really amazing to see all these case studies. Thank you so much. Amazing. Well, Stephanie, we really appreciate it. Last but certainly not least, I'm thrilled to present Ashley Murphy, who is the VP of Consumer Marketing at Rare Beauty. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. I will give the floor to you now, Ashley. Thanks again.
Thank you. All right. Let's get into it. All right. Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here today with all of you. I'm Ashley. I'm the Vice President of Consumer Marketing at Rare Beauty. I'm currently based in sunny Los Angeles and have had the pleasure of working at Rare Beauty for over 4 years now. And for those of you who may not be familiar, Rare Beauty is a mission-driven beauty brand by Selena Gomez. And we use makeup to shape positive conversations around beauty, self-acceptance, and mental health. And prior to Rare Beauty, I was at The Honest Company, Moon Juice, Hourglass Cosmetics. But enough about me. Let's jump in to what's vital for social media in 2024. All right. So what's vital today? Creating space for intuition. As leaders, it's our responsibility to create a path for our team to trust their gut. The social media team is one of the few teams within the organization that knows your community the best. They know what motivates them. They know what excites them. They know what new product is on the top of their wish list. This is invaluable information. And at the end of the day, they are the ones on the front lines connecting with them daily in the comments, the DMs, and seeing firsthand every single piece of user-generated content that is being created on behalf of your brand. And by building this emotional connection, the social team has insights that data often cannot provide. And you're probably asking yourself, okay, Ashley, but let's be honest, what about KPIs? Because that's what we all get asked about, right? As marketers, the first question we get asked when we pitch an idea is, but wait, what's the KPI? And as soon as that campaign is launched, we get asked, how's the KPI? How is the KPI to benchmark? But what if I told you data is really, really good at explaining the past and often pretty bad at predicting the future? And as all of us know with social media, the landscape is evolving so rapidly. And what's relevant 6 months ago isn't going to necessarily be relevant in 6 months from now, or even 6 weeks or 6 days from now. And if you wait until you have the perfect data point to join a platform or the perfect data point to test into a certain content pillar or content franchise, you are too late. And while I am certainly not advocating for you to run to your CMO or CEO and tell them you're never looking at another KPI ever again, I do firmly believe it's a synergy of art and science. And at Rare Beauty, we do just that to make what Forbes calls informed intuition, which really uses that scientific element of marketing, including data-backed insights that we all get asked about so frequently, to help inform the gut-driven element of marketing. And the key to this starts with understanding your community, their behavior, and their preferences. Essentially, what each of our social media teams do each and every day. And I encourage you to empower them to trust their gut. What will be vital forever? Being of service to your community. One of my favorite quotes from Winston Churchill is, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And on social media, brands and companies are constantly taking from their community, whether it's asking them to like the post or share their content or purchase their latest launch. But what if we flip this around and instead created social strategies by asking ourselves, how can we be of service? What value does our content add to their life? At Rare Beauty, we empower our community to challenge beauty norms by shaping positive conversations about self-acceptance and mental health. Since the inception of the brand in 2020, we've rooted our social strategy in this belief and continue to show up for our community to make sure they feel seen, heard, and valued every single day. And I'm going to share a few ways we do that. One of the ways we do this is by shifting the narrative in beauty and beyond. We do this by providing tools to shift the narrative of what's thought to be negative thoughts around comparison and self-doubt into positive conversations around self-acceptance and mental health. We truly are a conduit to trusted mental health resources and support for our community. And we actually partner with our Rare Impact grantees to create content that meets our community where they're at. So whether it's reminding our community of their worth or sharing vetted resources on how to manage grief, we're able to be of service for our community. And we know this because our mental health content gets saved just as much as Selena's Get the Look content. Another way we're of service to our community, we take a human approach on social. We know Gen Z is the loneliest generation, yet the most connected ever. And through engaging, entertaining, and humanized content, we've been able to become their BFF online. And by constantly listening on social, we have had the unique opportunity to create inside jokes with them. So for example, when we launched our best-selling Soft Pinch Liquid Blush, our community would always joke that it's going to be a family heirloom because the formula is so pigmented and a little goes a long way. And for those of you who do use it, you know 1 dot is truly all you need. So once we saw this feedback, we actually decided to double down on this for April Fool's last year and create a jumbo size liquid blush, which you'll see here. where essentially it was a lifetime supply of blush that you could truly pass on as a family heirloom. And that one dot that was all you needed. Well, with the jumbo size, it covered your entire face. It has now almost been a year after the campaign has launched, and our community still talks about it. The other way we take a human approach, to many of you who are watching this cat right here probably looks like just another ordinary cat. But to our TikTok community, he is iconic. His name is Miguel. And you will only see him if you tune into our TikTok lives. So we create these fun inside jokes with our TikTok community that we then syndicate over to Instagram. So it's very much if you know, you know. What's never vital? This might be a very unpopular opinion, but tracking the competition is never vital. It is simply a distraction. And sure, should you keep up to date with their innovation and what they're doing differently? Absolutely. But I so truly believe that comparison is the thief of joy. And I've seen it firsthand at other brands with other marketers. They are constantly tracking what the competition is doing, and whether it's on Facebook or Geneva or Instagram or TYB, TikTok. I mean, we all know the list goes on and on of social media channels to track. But at this point, you've got a stage 5 clinger on the loose. And while you're tracking the competition and trying to connect the dots and keep up with what they're doing on social, you know what the competitors are doing? They're strategizing their next move and ultimately will always be one step ahead of you. Staying focused is so key. But you may be asking, how do we do this with so much noise on social? And at Rare Beauty, we do this by rooting our team in our mission, vision, and values. This is the guiding force behind our brand. And once our team is clear on these 3 pieces of the business, they are able to show up across social in a really meaningful way that feels true to our brand DNA. It gives them guardrails in how to interact with community members and how decisions should be made. So on that note, if I leave you with one piece to think about today, I encourage you to think about what makes your brand rare and how are you showing up on social in a way that's unique to your brand. So thank you to the Webbies for having me, and I will hand it back over to Nick.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Wow. The idea of art and science coming together feels so real for Rare. And, everything that you're talking about, from the intentionality to the intuition, it really feels so felt in everything that you're doing. And it's so clear the care and the thought that you make for your community. The idea of creating space for intuition, I actually feel like there's a callback there a little bit to Tom's idea, this idea of like acting and trusting your instincts. I think there's a lot of overlap in those two ideas and the informed intuition. I love the idea that data explaining the past is helpful, but maybe not as great for the future. And I think that's something I want to think about more in sort of the work that we do as well. And being of service, like I said, I mean, it's so clear the ways that you show up for your community. It's clear there's a lot of fans in this space as well. We've got some shout outs for the lip oil and the blushes in the chat. So the community is here today. And the idea of, never tracking the competition, I think it's really interesting to think about how we can go on our own lanes. And it's clear that what you've built there is very much one to its own. So thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Of course. Now, that concludes our sort of vitals presentations, but we are going to open up the floor to some question and answer. And I'd love to bring out everyone, Ashley, Tom, and Stephanie, back to the floor. So those of you who are thinking of questions, now's your chance. Please feel free to shoot us over some questions and we will dive in. I do have one question that I just want to pose to all of the speakers, which is, how do influencers and influencer marketing come into play when we think about the co-creator economy? So, maybe Tom, I'll start with you, since I know we talked a lot about the work that you did with Beyonce, but, for all of you, think about, how do influencers and influencer marketing come into play when we think about the co-creator economy? Tom, why don't we start with you, actually?
Yeah, of course. Well, certainly you can't do a campaign with Beyonce every day. So the thing I would say for this question is that like influencers and influencer marketing are sort of the foundation of co-creator marketing. It's going to be a big part of our strategy and how Verizon shows up moving forward as well. Because as we think about the creator space, like these are people that have dedicated their life to their craft, but most importantly, like dedicated their life to their audience. And as we think about how a brand shows up and talks with them and for them, it's important that we think about creators across the passion points that your brand cares about and the audiences that you want to reach, and how you can make things with them to bring to those audiences on an ongoing basis versus just like a one-off campaign. So I think that it's incredibly important and vital to be thinking about co-creation opportunities, not just on the biggest of stages, but in the everyday moments as well. It's candidly, I think, something as a brand that we haven't put on the front foot enough, and somewhere that we're going to be making big moves in the future.
Stephanie or Ashley, any thoughts from you?
Oh, heck yeah. So we have a program at NASA called NASA Social, where we allow folks who interact with us online around the world to apply for a credential to get the same kind of access we would grant the New York Times or a sitting member of Congress at a big event, like a launch or a landing. We take them behind the scenes, introduce them to our scientists and engineers, let them ask questions, shoot video, take photos, and all we ask is that they create something. And a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm not an influencer. I don't reach enough people. I shouldn't apply for this. And I want to take a more expansive definition of influencer. I actually don't like to use that word in our solicitations and sort of announcements of opportunity for these NASA socials. Much prefer digital creator. And if someone can demonstrate that they are reaching a niche audience, particularly a niche audience that NASA struggles to reach, I want them there. I literally want them in the tent. I want them to feel inspired and empowered, because if they can tell their story in a way that is trusted and celebrated by a fan base, they're essentially becoming an ambassador for NASA. That Space Act of 1958 that says I got to share the activities and data with the widest possible audience, it doesn't say that I have to do it alone. And so I'm never going to stop putting things out on our channels, but I'm like, everybody, come on. There's so much more to explore. You're all invited. So literally, you are all invited. Follow at NASA Social on X or sign up on our website, and we'll tell you about the next opportunity. I know for a fact that we've got one coming up this October at Kennedy Space Center for the launch of the Clipper spacecraft out to the Jupiter system. And that might discover life, and you could say that you were there.
Wow. Amazing. And Ashley, any thoughts on the influencer side of things?
Yeah, so I definitely echo the same things as Tom and Stephanie. And I think the other piece that's really fun is, and I touched on it during my presentation, but really it continues to humanize the brand in a really fun and meaningful way. You're obviously reaching a net new audience, but oftentimes we actually have Selena filming content with different creators, and it's kind of a fun sneak peek behind what the brand is actually like, because someone might have a certain point of view, and then when they actually view this content, it's fun, it's playful, it's meant to make you feel good, which is exactly what our tagline is. So I am a huge fan of it, and it's been a huge success for the brand so far.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, all of you seem to touch these in different spaces. So it's exciting to hear the different perspectives and also the overlap that you all have, which is really fascinating. Another question coming from Anna in the chat was, she'd love to hear all of your feelings on brands that use their social media teams as sort of spokespeople to build campaigns or audiences around, and what happens when those people leave the company. So maybe a little bit more about your internal teams and sort of them being, evangelizing your brands and sort of, is that a priority for you to sort of have the team, feel like they are building the campaign and the audience too?
Yeah, I can chime in here. We definitely have, our entire social media team is always on lives and really has that forward-facing role. And it works, right? Because the audience naturally has this emotional connection to them in a way that the brand just, it doesn't resonate in the same way if it comes from a brand versus a person, despite them representing the brand. So it's not something that we're doubled down on necessarily, but definitely in the strategy. As for people leaving, that is a great question, a question that I always think top of mind for. And knock on wood, fortunately, I have had the same team for 4 years. So hopefully this is not coming to, hopefully this does not happen. But with that, I think you just have to be honest with your community. You know, consumers are really smart these days. And if someone's going to go somewhere else and have a new endeavor, like, we should be celebrating that. And that's exciting. So I'm very much in the camp of being very transparent with your community and treating them like a friend, because you would tell your best friend, if you left a company, why would we not share the same thing?
Amazing.
And I would say that you sometimes see members of our social media team, whether it's at NASA Flagship or one of the literally hundreds of other accounts across the agency, because we've got them for all of our missions and projects and thematic areas. But we don't necessarily take a persona role for the agency. You're more often going to have that personal relationship with astronauts. And it's an interesting challenge for me, not as a commercial enterprise, but as a taxpayer funded one, of what's our relationship with astronauts after they leave the Corps. Because I can't tag them anymore. I can only tag the official accounts, NASA official accounts, because I can't use taxpayer money to like lift up individuals. This is why I'm not mentioning my personal social media channels, but you're all smart. If you want to reach out to me, you'll find me. So, you know, what do we do with Buzz and Mae Jemison? And sort of walking that path has been an interesting and challenging one. But I'm very happy to say that we've got great relationships with loads of astronauts who are off pursuing their own endeavors now.
Great.
Yeah, just to add one more thing here, I think with Verizon, like, we have the fortune of being, you know, quite frankly, a very large company with so many different tentacles and amazing people that we look to highlight and sort of humanize and bring people closer to. And oftentimes from like a telecommunications brand, this is really sort of unspoken and almost hidden work. So for instance, like, one of the content series that's been a consistent part of our social presence for this past year is something called Test Force. So Test Force is the actual name that we've remonikered our engineers that help make sure that your network is reliable and fast in all different parts of the country, which has all different wild needs and ways that we actually like bring that network to people. So you oftentimes think about like, oh, like, cool, my phone works, like I can go on TikTok, I can post this to Instagram, but you don't often know like what it takes to actually get there. So we actually like to put our Test Force engineers like front and center in a lot of our content. And actually, if you go to our Instagram now, we've got a really great latest version of the series with some incredible engineers that are in like the wilderness of Colorado, where you can go for 200 miles and literally it's one cell tower that provides service to all of the people in those areas. And these guys need to snowshoe to get there. They oftentimes need to take snowmobiles with equipment there and back, and they go through these incredible lengths to make sure that the network and the folks that live and visit those areas have reliable and fast service. So we want to highlight them and champion them as the faces of the brand that are letting people have these moments of connectivity that they might not realize. They might just think it's kind of like wires underground. But there's incredible employees that are at the forefront of making that happen. And we like to tell those stories as much as possible and let those engineers kind of do the talking for us.
Great. Stephanie, I have a question for you from Chloe. Chloe had asked that you talked about how NASA is so interactive with your online community. How do you coordinate such a large and responsive community management strategy? I know that they were asking, is it a large team? Although I know that you've mentioned that it's not a particularly large team. So I imagine that must be even more difficult. Tell us a little bit about that.
Kind of depends on how you define the team, right? So we've got like 8 core members of the flagship social media team. And, that's the 15 channels and upwards of 200 million followers. For the 389 million in the universe of NASA, that's actually about 250 people across the agency. And I'm working directly, I'm like the editor in chief, not like the editor, I am the editor, working with the team on the flagship accounts, but then I'm in an advisory role, helping to really distill and share best practices, also keep people up to date when the Office of Management and Budget drops a new memo, like an ethics memo that has repercussions for social media use, or when the platforms introduce a new feature. We have calls once a week, and they are highly interactive. And what you're seeing right now, me in this room with the Muppet arms, I think they will all attest that that's exactly what those meetings are like. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, and I'll close this out with one question for all of you, and I think this is great. This comes from the chat as well. You all have done such out-of-the-box, exciting ideas in all of the different spaces. This user had a question of, how do you get leadership on board to greenlight these out-of-box ideas? What does that sort of process look like? You all are such innovators. How do you get that idea sold? Maybe Ashley, I'll start with you.
Yes. So fortunately, our entire leadership team is obsessed with social media, down to our CEO. He will message me over the weekend. This is not normal, but like message me over the weekend to be like, congratulations, we hit 3 million followers on TikTok. Like everyone is heavily invested. He comes with ideas. So I think, I'm really fortunate that it's not a lot of selling in. People really understand the value of social and what it means. And especially knowing Selena's the founder of the brand. She's the most followed woman on Instagram with 429 million followers. So we are a social first brand. We have been since the inception. But that's not to say I haven't always had a challenge. And I think the biggest thing is really trying to educate. I find really does help. And I know it's probably a little frustrating when you're trying to move quickly, but by educating leadership and kind of setting the groundwork, it does help to get things through. It's just a slow build. Meanwhile, we all need to move quickly and can't have every TikTok approved. So I will leave it there.
Great.
I can chime in here from like a big brand perspective, both in working at Verizon and then my past role at Twitter when we were working with some of the biggest brands across the globe and on the planet. And I think that one of the things that I've always kind of tried to impart in my teams and practice myself is that when you're trying to sell in an idea, particularly to senior leadership at the highest levels, data isn't enough to kind of like validate that idea. But oftentimes that data comes with real customer or prospect or just people testimonials. So like you saw a bunch of real tweets in my slides. When we would present work at Twitter, we would always try to make sure that any data point that we were showing to say, hey, people are doing this or talking about that, you hero these like real moments of what customers are actually talking about. It's very hard to step into a room full of executives and show them a real comment from someone or a group of people that show a pattern of something that they want, a problem that they want solved, a white space that no one is filling. And then to show the actual data that validates that and to say, I have an idea of how to jump into that white space that no one else is. So it's this combination of like, we have the great thing about social is that like we have so many opportunities for like real human input to validate real behavior patterns and data. And the combination of those things, of course, like when coupled with a great idea, to me oftentimes has been like kind of the secret sauce. But I find that some folks want to just like lead with like 30 slides of data points. You don't have an emotional connection with the stat. But it's really, really hard to deny and say, hey, someone tweeted us or commented on our Instagram or TikTok and said this. And by the way, these 50 other people, here's what they were saying too. So what if we did that? It's a human element to the data that I think that, again, like feels really simple and logical, but sometimes is often overlooked because you're like looking for that secret stat that's going to be the thing that makes everyone feel comfortable. Oftentimes it's not the stat, it's the statement from a real person that can help someone connect with an idea and say like, okay, this is right, we have to do this.
But Tom,
Great.
you know, if you've got anecdotal evidence, those great comments and big numbers, then that is really hard to deny, right? So when we started Curiosity, we were kind of flying under the radar. Senior management was like, whatever, just don't break news. And we went off and did our thing. Now that everybody does know and all eyes are on Flagship, sometimes we'll turn to some of the smaller accounts to be a little bit more experimental. And if we get a hit, then we've got the proof and we can take it to market on our bigger channels.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Tom, Stephanie, Ashley. Thank you so much for this wonderful, vital insights from all of you today. A big thanks to Verizon as well, our partners on this event. And thanks to all of you on the internet for joining us today. At the Webbies, we have some very exciting announcements next week. We will be revealing our nominees for the 28th Annual Webby Awards. So be sure to check our socials. Cross fingers, everybody. Our socials are at the Webby Awards next week. A big thanks again to all of you. And until then, we'll see you all on the internet. Thanks so much.